This Instagram reel got 1.7 million views, 60,000 likes, and brought in over 5,000 new followers to my personal brand account. And the wild part, it was made completely on autopilot by an AI system we built. In this video, I'm pulling back the curtain on the Recap's AI-powered short-form video machine, a system that turns our daily newsletter into viral clips for Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts without lifting a finger. Just imagine what this could do for your business. Daily branded content, auto-published, bringing in tens of thousands of views while you sleep. Stick around to the end and I'll give you the exact prompts and templates we use so you can clone this system for your own brand. All right, let's jump in. All right, and here we go. So here is the workflow that automates the script writing process for our social channels. You can see, these reels have gotten thousands of views. In one case, close to 2 million views. And I'm going to do a quick demo in this section, demoing how this works and to wind up as a reel or TikTok or YouTube Shorts, etc. So first and foremost, if you haven't already watched our AI generated newsletter video, you should go check that out because that is the foundation for us being able to build these scripts for social media automatically. Because the first step is actually we built this massive data ingestion agent that is scraping all over the internet, Twitter, Reddit data, blogs of popular AI companies, Hacker News, other news sources. And every single day, it's pulling all this AI relevant news and saving it into a data lake that we can then go and query on our own. So every day this data ingestion is running, and this data is what powers all forms of media content, one being our daily newsletter. So you can see here the Recap AI. That data lake that goes and grabs the most relevant AI news every day powers all this content. So number one, drop your email into the Recap AI and you'll get our free daily newsletter covering what's going on in AI, the updates you need to know. Do that and watch the video on how we built this, but we're not going to cover that here. So jumping into the start of our script writing agent. What the first step is, like I said, it's going to retrieve that text content that gets saved to our data lake from the other workflow. The schedule trigger here is every day. It's going to run this at 7 o'clock and it's going to fetch the markdown content, the text content from the data lake for that day. And so we can jump in and see, okay, for today, you can see it's pulled in a whole bunch of stories, a black hole of energy use. Meta's massive AI data center is stressing out a Louisiana community. And all this text data is all relevant news to the AI industry. And so this is the text data that we're going to now prompt against to build viral social media scripts that we can turn into short form video content. So this is the first two steps here are retrieving data from the data lake, the Twitter data, as well as the general news data. So then once we've retrieved all of that context from our data lake, we are going to use this prompt to pick the top stories out of all of that data for that day. And essentially we want to see the most interesting, thought-provoking, groundbreaking stories based on all that data that we feed in. And those stories then get shared into a Slack channel here. And you can see that we have, for yesterday's, federal judge rules AI training on books is legal. Game changer for AI industry. And it just gives us a quick overview of the most important stories that happened the prior day. Okay, then we're going to jump down here, clean up data, and actually build the scripts based on these top stories. By the way, you can get all the prompts that are powering this system for free by joining our school community. This is where you can download this full n8n template completely for free. The link is in the description. Hit join for free and then snag the templates by navigating to YouTube n8n resources. Click the proper video and you can download the JSON for this n8n template. Okay, back in. So now that we have the top stories, we need to write short form video scripts from those stories. And again, here we're going to feed in all of the context. So you are a viral short form video script writer for David Roberts, host of The Recap. Follow the workflow below. So we feed in some example scripts that are popular and that have gone viral on Instagram. So we kind of build up context of, hey, this is what a good script looks like. We then dynamically feed in the story context from the data lake. And then we have this prompt. Step 1, ideate, generate 5 distinct hook sentences drawn from the story context, reflect and choose, compare the hooks for stopping power, clarity, curiosity. And so you can see this is what's actually building the script. So then that gets shared back into Slack, and we can actually review the scripts that it came up with. So for this story on the federal judge rules AI training on the books is legal. Here it is, script. So imagine me, as a talking head on Instagram saying this. So a federal judge just changed AI forever with one ruling. Federal Judge William Alsup ruled that Anthropic can legally train AI on copyrighted books without author's permission. You get the idea. And so we actually have it generate multiple different scripts for us so that our video editors can come in and decide which ones they like the best. And so at a high level, that is a demo of this workflow. Now you can take this a step further, because once you have the script, you can generate the talking head style videos in a video generation platform like HeyGen, which is exactly what we do. You can see we've done this for all of our content. Then the final output is, me talking head delivering the script, and then we pass it off to our video editor who actually creates reels like this.
Apple just dropped a bomb on the AI world, and no one's talking about it. They released a paper
and you
called
can see that this reel went completely viral with 70,000 likes, 1.8 million views, and it's brought in me like 5,000 followers, which is the goal. So again, you can get the whole system, join our school community for free, and you can download all of this. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Lucas now to actually walk through node by node this whole build and the technical build out of it, so you can follow along. Let's go.
So let's dive in here and get started walking through this n8n automation node by node so you can gain a true understanding of how everything you see here is working together to power this automation. By the end of this, you're going to have a solid grasp on how everything works here, and you're going to be able to take this n8n template, make the tweaks you need to the prompt and the data lake loading to start generating short form video scripts all on autopilot. So to get started, the first 2 sections we have configured on this automation are 1, retrieving markdown content from this S3 bucket node we have set here, and then 2, we're starting similarly on retrieving Twitter content also from an S3 bucket. I do want to pause and switch gears a little bit here to cover more context on what's happening and how data actually gets into these S3 buckets. This is a system we've set up on the Recap AI that is going to be scraping AI news day in and day out using a scheduled node system. We scrape news off the internet related to AI, bundle it all together in a nice, clean, easy to read format, and then store it in an S3 storage bucket or any other sort of persistent system so that we can repurpose content like this. We call this our AI News Data Lake, and we use it to drive a lot of different content processes here at the Recap AI. And so our newsletter that we send out every single day follows a very similar function where we're loading up all of the news stories captured off the internet any given day and feeding that through a series of prompts. And so I'm going to jump over to this automation here that is our AI data ingestion pipeline for capturing AI news every single day and briefly talk over some of the core components. I'm not going to go through this one node by node, but we have done a video on this in the past. And so we're going to throw it up somewhere on the screen here so you can dive into that and understand how this works end to end and how you can build something similar for your business or for one of your clients. At its core, what we're doing is using a series of these scheduled trigger nodes here, all on the left side that run at varying intervals. So Twitter, every single day, we're scraping tweets off a For You page at the 1 hour interval. So we'll get 24 scrape operations going every single day. For our group of blogs that we have set up here for scraping news from the top AI blogs like NVIDIA, OpenAI, Google AI, and Anthropic, we have a similar schedule set up, but we're running every 4 hours to see if we can capture that latest announcement, the latest research paper, straight from the source on their own blogs. So that's running every couple of hours. if I go down, we can get into some of the subreddits we're scraping related to AI. So artificial, r/artificial, r/OpenAI, and r/artificial intelligence are the main subreddits we're scraping for links to outgoing stories covering news in the AI space. Finally, at the bottom here, we have a couple miscellaneous feeds also configured that are going to scrape news off of Hacker News and the specific Google News feed we've set up for technology and AI updates. So we're pulling in data each and every day on a scheduled trigger from many different sources all across the internet. So for each of these nodes, that trigger is going to run. We're going to fetch the URL we need to go out and scrape. And then everything is going to pipe into this centralized flow that you see here. So all of this logic is shared. So we're going to grab out some common properties like what's the URL and the name of the news article we're trying to scrape. We're actually going to use this node to scrape that. We're going to run a simple prompt to evaluate if the story is relevant for us or if we want to discard it. And finally, at the end here, what we're going to do is we're going to take the result of that scraped story. We're going to upload it into our S3 bucket using this S3 node operation. So upload temp markdown file. So we're uploading a file. And then if I come back here, we're going to be searching for those files later. And so that's how everything connects together. On the schedule, everything gets scraped and gets uploaded into these S3 buckets. Same thing here for Twitter, where we're uploading a file. After that's done, and we have enough of these files saved for the day, this is going to run on a schedule like we have here, usually in the evening after we've got enough scraped information. And then we're going to load up all of that data that's been scraped and build up a nice context window for us to use and try and extract interesting AI stories that would be a good fit for short form video. So I know that was a lot. Coming back here to the data ingestion pipeline, really recommend you pause here, watch this video that we put together on how to build this and how to use this, and get started there first, because that's going to answer a lot of questions when it comes to setting up a scraping operation like this. So with that primer complete on our AI data ingestion system and our data lake, let's switch over to this first section here to actually retrieve markdown content out of our data lake and get it bundled together for later prompting for our short form video scripts. The first thing we have to do here is actually jump into this node, and we can see that we're using this S3 node to connect to a bucket resource. We're going to do the search operation under our data ingestion bucket, and we're going to be searching for all files that have this prefix for today's date. This is a naming schema we set up on our ingestion system that makes it easy for us to find any news stories for a given date. So here's what we have set up in our data lake. So you can see, and every folder here is a date that news stories were scraped for. So if I just load one up here, we can see that we have the story scraped and have a raw HTML file saved, and this .md, which is a markdown file saved of just plain text of the news story's data. That's perfect, and that's exactly what we want to pull out of the data lake for later prompting as we work through this automation. So let's run this here and see what happens. So that looks good, and the output of this is actually 123 different items extracted from our data lake. So we can see here we have a bunch of files coming from things like TechCrunch, from Yahoo Finance. It looks like there's a lawsuit about training AI on books. And so this is working as expected. Moving on here, the next node here is going to be filtering out only the markdown files that are stored in the data lake. So if we go back here to the pipeline, after we get all of the cleanup on the pipeline set, we're actually going to be uploading both a .md file and a .html file of what was scraped. We just like to have the source of truth. You don't have to necessarily do this, but that's how we set it up in our system. So when we're loading this and building up our context window for further prompting, we just want the contents of this MD file. And so we do a simple filter here to filter out only the markdown files. And so only want the files that end in .md. Let's run that. And so we go from 123 files down to 27. Moving forward, the next node we have here is an API request to our own system to get some extra metadata about the file that was saved. And so if I pull this up here, load this markdown file, we have this custom metadata that was set on each of these files in the data lake. This includes things like the source it was from, the type of source or type of content piece that was extracted, and some things like the feed it came from or any image URLs that have existed on that story. This is useful for us to do additional filtering on each item and getting data in a clean, ready-to-use spot. So I'll go ahead and run this next. This one may take a while because we're going to have to fetch this for 27 different items. That actually went pretty quick, and we're going to continue forward then. Next up is another exclusion where we're trying to filter out newsletters. That is one of the source types we've set up here under the metadata that we really don't want to include in our system for generating short form video content. We want something that's a little bit fresher to the source, and what we found is a lot of the newsletters that we've scraped are a bit delayed by a day or two on what they're writing about. So we want close to the source when it was published news stories for our short form video scripts that we're generating. Let's move on. The next note here is going to be this operation to download the full object of all 25 files that have made it through the pipeline so far. So I'll run this. This is going to kick off the built-in download operation. So we're going to use a file resource. We're going to download a file, and we're going to specify the bucket we want to download it from. So this is our data ingestion bucket, very similar to what we have here and exactly what we have here. And this is going to be the same as downloading this raw file. So we'll let that run, and we get a list here of all 25 files that were extracted. Perfect, that's what we need. And the next step of this is going to be processing each of those files. So we're using this node built into n8n called extract from text file, where we're going to pass in each of these data files on the left here, and we're going to output data that exists inside the file. So this runs, and so we can now see the data output here is going to be markdown formatted text content that was in each of these files. So we've gone from a simple date to input the start of this automation, all the way down to a list of the text that was in each of these files extracted from our data lake. Moving on, we're going to take this text in this node we have here with a simple set field operation that does a little bit of a transformation on the data we pulled out of here. Basically, taking that raw text, adding the metadata that existed on that file, and grouping it inside this XML tag. And so when we pass this into a prompt, it makes it really easy for the LLM that we're using to be able to pick out information on who wrote this, where it came from, what's the date, what other URLs were included in this content, and then grouping together that content itself. When I'm prompting and building up large context windows like this, I'm a huge fan of including this extra metadata and wrapping the contents of each story that we're processing in these XML tags. And so the start of that XML tag looks like this. We have this identifier set up that uniquely identifies the file where the story came from. And so we have this one-to-one mapping that goes from our story saved in the data lake to what's loaded here into this text part that will be passed into a prompt and later used for more processing. So this keeps it clean, easy to read, and we have found this works really well when we're building up large context windows and building prompts off of that. Next up will be section 2 here, where we're doing the same thing, but for retrieving our Twitter content. The reason we do this in its own section is because we are persisting our scraped Twitter content a little bit different. When we go to upload a file here, we're uploading a raw JSON file of the text content of the tweet itself instead of Markdown. This is just the raw way we're able to scrape this off of Twitter, and trying to keep that one-to-one with the source of truth just makes it a little bit easier for us to work with. And so in order to consume those tweets, what we do is take a very similar approach where we search the tweets, but on this prefix we provide in the search operation, we're going to actually use this /tweet dot filter on that prefix. This is another convention that we've set up in our system where every single tweet is set up with a format like this. And so if we scrape a tweet, you're going to see a file that looks like tweet dot followed by a number for its ID and then ends in JSON. So we're going to load all those up and get a bundle of tweets that are saved that way. So let me actually undo this so this is able to work, and let's execute. So there we go, 72 tweets loaded up. We don't have as much filtering to do here because we don't save the raw HTML representation alongside those tweets. So that's why you see these nodes here looking a little bit shorter, and we're able to jump ahead directly to this download step. So on the first section, this matches what we're doing right now on those 72 tweets. So I'm gonna pause here, let that run, and we'll come back once that download finishes. There we go. That node just finished downloading the 72 tweet files. We can see once again, we have all of these data files downloaded straight from our data lake that have this file name that matches tweets dot followed by the tweet ID .json. So that's the text content or the JSON representation of every single tweet we want to process. We're then going to run another node here that is called extract from JSON that takes in what is supposed to be a JSON file and gives us the structured data out of it. And so we have this set up here on the right-hand side of what one tweet is, and we have all the data that comes with each individual tweet, including the text content of the tweet itself. Going forward, we're going to make another call into our own API to get the object info and all the metadata associated with those tweets. We're going to then use a set field node to prepare the tweet content, very similar to what we did with the markdown content. But on this time, we're going to do a little bit of a different transformation where we're including more metadata like the tweet view, the retweet count, the bookmark count, just to give the LLM a bit more of a signal on which tweet has a better signal to noise ratio. And so if something like this, 600 views, very minimal interaction, probably not a great story for us to cover when we're passing this into the LLM. So valuable metadata just to load up into the context of that prompt we're going to be later building. And so it's good to have together. So we build that tweet content for each of the 72 tweets. We are going to aggregate that together. And so we go from 72 tweets to one list of 72 tweets. And then finally, we combine it together into a single text field, just like what we did for the markdown content before. So by the end of this, if I load it up, we have this large list here of all the tweets that were extracted and scraped from the internet for that day with the tweet content itself and any metadata we need that goes with it. So with each of these news stories scraped off the internet and loaded into our data lake in an easy to read format for our LLMs, it's time to move on to section number 3 here, which will be responsible for picking out the top stories and writing the scripts and hooks for each of the short form videos we may want to make. The first thing that happens here is going to be the set field node where we build out the prompt to pick out the top stories. This is a pretty beefy prompt, so I don't want to go through it in too much detail. You'll be able to get all of this by joining our free school community, but I will highlight some of the key parts. First thing we do here at the top of this, we'll be setting the objective for this prompt. So analyze the provided daily digest of AI news and select the top 3 to 5 stories most suitable for short form video content. Your primary goal is to maximize audience engagement with likes, comments, shares, and saves. Today's date for the curation is we pass in the timestamp from the schedule. Use this to prioritize the most recent and relevant news. We want to avoid selecting stories that happened in the past. So this is the basic setup for here. We're trying to load up the current stories, select the ones and filter out the ones that happened too far in the past, and select the most interesting ones. Then, after that's done, we move into the process for how we think through curating the most interesting stories. So we're looking for impactful, practical, proactive, and astonishing stories. We set up some filters here on things we want to ignore and know for certain that we want to exclude. And we have a couple of hook examples built out that could be good candidates for generating these hooks on the stories we want to write about. We provide some more guidelines on the hooks and then detail our process for how we would do this by hand so the LLM has even more context. So how we would do this, we would ingest by reading the raw text of all of that context provided below. And so if we look down here, this is going to be all of that markdown content we bundled up from Twitter and from the scraped web stories. Then if I go down, we're going to deduplicate, identify any stories that are overlapping so we don't cover the same story twice. Say TechCrunch and some other publication wrote about the same event, like a new model released. We don't want to cover that twice in 2 of the ideas, so we'll deduplicate. Select and rank out those stories. So we want to apply this curation framework to select the 3 to 5 best stories that are going to be the most interesting to our audience. And then as part of the output, we actually want the AI to generate a hook or a couple hook examples for us to evaluate and later use when we go to generate these short form videos. Once that's done, we have this pretty detailed output format we want to expect that includes the title, the summary of what happened in the story, and is going to give us a list of a couple different hook angles we'd like the AI to consider. So more examples here with the JSON format, and then finally, again, building up that final context at the very end. So that's it for the prompt. I'm going to kick this off, and we'll come back after this pick top stories prompt finishes up. So we're back here, and our pick top stories prompt just finished up running. If we look in here, we can see under our output, we have this array of multiple top stories selected for the day. So if I jump into the first one, we're going to see, federal judges just made AI training legal. This changes everything. A federal judge just ruled that Anthropic's use of copyrighted books to train Claude AI was legal fair use, marking the first major legal victory for AI companies in copyright battles. This could set a massive precedent for the entire AI industry. So that's a great summary. We're going to be able to know what happened there for that story. We expand here and we have another list of potential hook angles. This is going to be something we use to start off our short form video when we're narrating this story. So this court ruling will change AI forever. Just ruled AI can steal your work legally. Things like that to really gather attention for a short form video like a TikTok or Instagram reel. Down below, the other important part of this is this list of sources that were pulled from. So if you remember when we're building out that context of everything that's going to get passed into the LLM and this prompt specifically, we included metadata like the URL that a story came from. And so when we go to write the script, we have access to this URL to either scrape again or load back up from our data lake to get even more context necessary for this full story. So this is great. And we do the same thing here for stories 2 to 5 that we're pulling out for the day. Moving forward here, we have a couple of other nodes really just related to getting the data in a clean spot. We have this set field node here where we're doing some internal Slack ops because we want to share these messages in our Slack channel for all these top stories that are potentially going to be covered for the day. And so we get a nicely formatted Slack message here of all the stories that were extracted for that day. Going down below, let's come back to our automation and get into this final row here of what we're going to be doing to loop over each of the stories that were selected and write a full short form video script that we can use and start filming. We set this up with a split node here at the end where we're going to go from one item, specifically the list of stories here on the left side, and then split out 5 different items we're going to be able to iterate on. And so we have this loop node set up here with a batch size of 1, which means that each story is going to be processed individually. So everything that's highlighted now is going to be related to one specific story that was pulled out from this pick top stories prompt. So we'll do that for one story. We'll loop over, do it again until we work through all 5. Let's jump into these so we can see a little bit more what's going on. Most of what's happening here is just data formatting and shuffling, but the first thing that is notable is this Slack node that shares the story. So like we said, this is actually yesterday's. So if we run this, we'll see the 624 stories appearing, but we get this nice breakdown of what happened here with the potential hooks and sources. In addition to that, that's going to include the script, but I'll come back to that a little bit later after we go through the rest of the nodes. So we're going to share that initial story and then continue through this chain to get the more scraped sources and start writing the script. So more data cleanup up until the scrape URL node is ran. So what we're going to do is split out each of the URLs that were found in the story. And so if you remember up here, we have this list of source URLs that all exist. What we're going to do is re-scrape those here. So we'll get 5 or 6 sources, if ideally, that we're able to capture the raw text from once again, get that in markdown format, filter out errors, and bundle that all together into a single object that can be passed into one final LLM call to write the script for this short form video. So I'll run this now and come back after that completes. So all of this just finished, like I mentioned before, with the splitting out of URLs. So we grab those 5 stories, scrape those URLs, and get this large bundle of markdown content that was extracted from each of those sites. In theory, we could actually go back and just reload this from the data lake, but for the sake of simplicity, wanted to demonstrate and show you guys how you could go out and scrape more information. So we got that scraped, filter out any errors that came up while scraping, and then aggregate that together into a single result we're going to be able to bundle together into this next prompt. So this finished, this is going to be responsible for writing the scripts and the hook options all together for one single story. And the output of this is shaped like the following. We have these 5 different hook options here that could be used. And then we have the selection for the top 2 scripts that the AI chose out of everything that it wrote. And so it used the hook here for the top spot being federal judge just made AI training legal. And the bottom spot here is AI companies won their first major copyright battle. After that, it goes forward and builds a full script that we could use for a short form video like on TikTok or Instagram Reels. Let's jump back to the prompt now to see how we built this out. This is pretty simple. Much of the setup is how we treat every other prompt that we do here at the recap. In the beginning, we have the objective and the goal of what the AI is supposed to be doing and what the main task and output should look like. So you are a viral short form video scriptwriter for David Roberts, host of The Recap. Follow the workflow below each run to produce two 50 to 60 second scripts in between 140 and 160 words. Nice and specific, and we're giving a lot of examples here on scripts that we like, so the AI is able to use those examples to construct something similar given the new content and new context we will be providing. So here's the example scripts. I won't read through all of these, but just so you know, we're a huge fan of providing examples when prompting. So highly recommend you also follow this practice when building this out. Other key part to note here is going to be the story context that we're loading in. So if I come down here, we can see the story context from the set current story node where we're starting the loop. So right here, for each story we're passing in, that is getting built up. And when I come down, we're setting the title, the summary, and all of the data that was loaded from that story is getting set right here. So we can see all of this context, like the markdown that was previously scraped, is loaded back up here. And so the script writing prompt has access to all of these tokens and whatever context it needs to put together a compelling short form video script. So very important to have that context loaded when we start this, or if you don't do this, you're going to hit hallucinations and other issues. Going forward, we have a couple of stepped instructions where we're going to ideate, reflect, and choose on what's the best, and then finally pick out and write the 2 top script ideas, just like what we saw on the output before, off to the right. So that's the result of what happens of running this prompt. Again, join the school community and you'll get access to all of these prompts for free. So we're going to write that. And then finally, if I run these last couple of nodes for this story, we're going to see that we split out the two top selected scripts. We're going to share it in Slack and then append all that additional context in Slack as well, so we can see what was going on for this story on all the news stories scraped off the internet. So quite a bit going on here, but when you break it down piece by piece, it's really just mostly shuffling data around and building up context for your pick top stories prompt and to write the individual scripts itself. Once again, after this last node finishes here, we're going to share it in Slack and we're going to loop back here to the next iteration of this full loop. And so from our top stories, if you remember, we had 5 stories selected. Each of these nodes is going to run through 5 times and share those results back in Slack. So we have the 5 top selected stories on AI News for the day, along with the hooks written for both and 2 full scripts that we can choose and go forward for producing short form AI News videos.
All right, before you go, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Seriously, do it, because we're going to be breaking down all of the AI automations that we use to run all of our businesses. They're super helpful, and we're going to break down exactly how we do them on this YouTube channel. So make sure like and then subscribe, and then you'll get notified when we publish new workflows that can make your businesses run 20 times more efficiently, just like we're seeing here at the recap and the other businesses that we're running. The other item is join our school community for free. The link's in the description. You'll be able to get this template, this automation that we just ran through in this video, completely for free. You can go to school and navigate to the video that you want, and then you can download the JSON output for the n8n automation. With that, you can upload it into your n8n, clone it, and then tune it for your business and your use cases. So like and subscribe, join our free community to get this automation for yourself, and we'll see you in the next video.